Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Manage the Wild. I'm your host, Nick Madsen. We're talking about animals moving from public land to private land today. And it doesn't matter what kind of animals, it can be any. We can even talk about geese doing this more and more as outdoor recreation becomes more popular and more tools are available to help people get further and further into the backcountry. Whether it's legally allowed or not, they are using those tools to help them get further back there and spend more and more time, and these animals are filling it. Here in Utah, we are starting to see, and we've been seeing it for a long time, but you're starting to see it more and more with more and more collar data. Ask the biologists around you, where are these animals spending time? And they're spending time on private property. So, I was listening to a debate, not listening, that's the wrong word. I was reading about a debate. There was a guy on social media who he was hunting whitetail back east, and he was upset that people on private property were baiting animals, which was legally allowed to do in that state. They were baiting animals off of public property onto private. So these animals spend a lot of their time on private property or on public property and then get pulled off during the hunts on private property. And he was upset that the state was spending all these resources to grow these deer, but then they end up getting sucked onto the private property, and he was blaming it all on baiting. And there was a debate about how much effect that bait actually has on these animals. And you can go into Google Scholar and you can read, there's multiple articles saying that it's very effective, especially in areas that haven't had moisture for a while. So when you're thinking of down south where there's not a lot of moisture and you start throwing some bait out, you can draw a lot of animals. The other thing, though, that I would like to highlight that we see a lot of here is not necessarily baiting, but it's the lack of pressure. There is so much recreation going on in just your overall outdoor experience now compared to when I was young that it's unbelievable. Snowmobilers, backcountry skiers, cross country skiers, snowshoers, those are all happening right now. But then you move into the springtime, and then you've got the hikers, the backpackers, the bikers, and then you move into the fall, the summer, the fall, and you start getting the hunters putting out their trail cams. I mean, there's just constant pressure on these public lands, and what we've been seeing it for a while, as animals are starting to figure out where there is no pressure. They are looking just like I'm getting old, I'm getting ornery. I like to go to my favorite room, which is right here. I come downstairs, sit in this room. It's quiet, it's peaceful. I don't have all the commotion going on. My kids aren't screaming down here. Or I go to my in laws and all the grandkids get together. It's just so loud. It's so irritating. You just want to get away from all of that. And that's what these animals are doing. And it doesn't matter it doesn't matter if it's whitetail deer, mule deer, elk. You're even seeing it with geese. There's so much going on the waterways. You can be in the middle of your goose hunt, calling in geese into your decoys, and all of a sudden a jet skier will fly right through the middle of them, doing 70 miles an hour without even seeing them. And these birds, they're going to move to the private property because they're being harassed less. And that's what these deer, these elk, these whitetails, that's what they're wanting, less pressure. So not only is bait, yes, going to draw them, but the amount or the reduction in pressure so they can sit quietly. They can go through their habitat, eating the food they want, being able to process it without being constantly disturbed, without constantly being on vigilance, because the more vigilance they have, the less food they're able to bring in. Then you have a detriment to their health because they're constantly looking around going, is that a motorcycle, or is that a cougar? Is that a motorcycle, or is that a coyote? Is that a backpacker, or is that a bear? They're constantly on alert until they move into these private areas. These large tracts of land that are private reduce like 100, almost 100%. Let's say there is 99.9% reduction in pressure on these private areas versus these public lands that are being used. It's great that people are going out and about, but these animals are going to continue as they get smarter and smarter or generational over time. They are going to move more to these private areas that aren't accessible to the general public, and it's going to make it more difficult. Let me know what you guys think of that. But this is one of the things I think a lot of people talk about baiting as being the key, but I think the amount of pressure for me is really the biggest factor. All right, you guys have a great day. Stay wild.